We're following two big breaking news stories right now on News Nation. 1 month after Trayvon Martin's death, his parents respond to new reports just out by police and attorneys for George Zimmerman that Trayvon Martin attacked the neighborhood watch volunteer. New accounts that they are alleging today. Also, the first audio release from the Supreme Court as justices hear arguments about the constitutionality of President Obama's landmark health care law. I'm Tamron Hall. The News Nation is following, though, this breaking news in the Trayvon Martin case. Trayvon Martin's parents are about to address new allegations about their son as today marks 1 month since the unarmed 17-year-old was shot by a neighborhood watch captain in Sanford, Florida. Now, a spokesperson for the family has confirmed to MSNBC a report that appeared in the Orlando Sentinel that Trayvon Martin had been suspended from his Miami school after being found with an empty bag, a marijuana bag, as it's being described. The paper also reported today police said Zimmerman claimed Martin hit him and then climbed on top of him, slamming his head repeatedly on the sidewalk. Meantime, we're just 2 hours away from another massive rally and march starting at a Sanford Park. Protesters include high-profile civil rights activists and some professional athletes who are joining in among the everyday citizens who are concerned about this case. They're going to go to the city commission meeting in Sanford where Trayvon Martin's parents will speak. We're expecting them to speak around 5 o'clock. Joining me now live is Joanne Reed. She's the managing editor of thegrio.com, MSNBC contributor. You see she's on her way to this rally. But Joanne, I got to start off with the developing news right now. We know that Trayvon Martin's parents are going to talk about this new report regarding that he was suspended from school. What we are seeing now, obviously, in both sides of this, one side now trying to make George Zimmerman appear to be the person they say they know, and you have information now coming out reportedly about Trayvon Martin's background as well.
I think it's a little bit troubling, actually, Tamron. I think that what you're seeing is the pushback on the part of people who support George Zimmerman. And the pushback appears to be to try to bring down the image of Trayvon Martin, to try to prevent him from appearing to be a martyr. I think it's a little bit disturbing. He is the party who cannot speak for himself at this point. He was the person who was killed. And I think it's irrelevant. I mean, if he was being pursued by George Zimmerman, I'm not sure what his past or being suspended from school has to do with that. So I think that you're going to see a lot of supporters of Trayvon Martin not happy about the idea of trying to sort of besmirch his image. And
you can imagine, so the family will talk about that. And to your point, Joanne, you've got this suspension that the family has confirmed, but you also have a 2005 mugshot of George Zimmerman, who at the time was accused of attacking a police officer. I'm not trying to compare crime to crime here or offense to offense, but we certainly know if there's going to be digging around that question about the behavior that was allegedly exhibited by George Zimmerman toward an officer of the law in 2005 is something that people will likely, including journalists, dig into as well, even though those charges were dropped. There was some reason that those were the allegations out there.
Right, and absolutely, Tamron, and that's more relevant. I mean, that is something that goes to the idea of violence. I mean, the bottom line here is what happened in that altercation on February 26th. I think that what Trayvon Martin may or may not have done to be suspended from school in the past is really wholly irrelevant, whereas potential violence on the part of George Zimmerman seems relevant to this case.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about some of these folks who are with you on this bus. Where are they coming from, and why have they decided to join in today?
Okay, well, this is a bus that was chartered by the Urban League of Palm Beach County. So they're heading down from West Palm Beach down up really to Sanford to be a part of this huge march that could be tens of thousands of people today at the City Commission meeting. And I want to talk first to Cedric Thomas. Mr. Thomas is actually a city commissioner in the West Palm Beach area. So do you want to tell us, Mr. Thomas, why are you here? Why do you think this is important?
This is important because we have a community with a lot of youth that fit that age description of the deceased, and it's a serious matter. So we have to bring light to this matter. It is an injustice that has happened, and we will not stand for it. And we're going to continue to fill buses. We're going to continue to make our presence known, to know that, so that commission knows that this is unsatisfactory, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you. And Tamara, you can see that there are a lot of young people on this bus. They are back there, and you can see that we have all ages on this bus here, and they're all going for one reason, and that's to seek justice for Trayvon Martin. Cameron?
All right. Thank you, Joanne Reed. And the rally comes as George Zimmerman's attorney launches a public campaign to defend his client. That's what he's hired to do. Zimmerman's attorney, along with friends who say they've known him, at least one friend, for 10 years, spoke out on the Today Show just this morning.
George Zimmerman suffered a broken nose, injuries to the back of his head, and signs of a scuffle, being grass stain on the back of his shirt.
George was acting as a neighborhood watch captain in a neighborhood that had been violated by a number of crimes, and that's why he was watching and saw someone that he didn't recognize.
So with me now from Miami, Kendall Coffey, a Miami criminal defense attorney and former U.S. attorney for the state of Florida. Thank you so much for joining us again. Let me talk to you about just some of the developments here regarding, let's start with the photograph. The first photograph, as you well know, of Mr. Zimmerman was 2005 when he was accused of assaulting a law enforcement officer. We now have a picture of him. I believe it's a work ID, smiling, very different there. Kendall, tell me a little bit about the strategy you think is happening here.
Well, obviously Zimmerman's been getting pounded in a court of public opinion. So his attorney, in a perhaps very appropriate way, if you're the defense lawyer, you're trying to level the playing field to the extent you can, is mounting a counter campaign. And he's doing it without having his client go anywhere near reporters or the TV camera. Really good idea. So the lawyer's getting out there talking about some of the details, which include, according to him, that Zimmerman had a broken nose or that his head was gashed. Meanwhile, he's also got a surrogate, not Zimmerman himself, but a friend, talking about George Zimmerman, good guy. It's certainly not enough at this point to change anybody's mind, but it may start to change the conversation at least a little bit, so that, at least from Zimmerman's standpoint, people understand there are some alleged facts on the other side.
Let me ask you this, and I'm sure you do not know the answer, but we both have eyes. We can see the friend that was presented is a person of color. Obviously, race is a big part of this investigation. The friend saying on the Today Show that George Zimmerman, in his opinion, is not a racist, would not act in that way based on race. Is it a coincidence here that the friend is a person of color that the attorney has presented here for the public opinion?
Of course not. That's part of the strategy that the defense lawyer is launching to try to say that Zimmerman's not a racist. Look at this friend of his. And of course, meanwhile, there are other reports going on, news reports saying that there could have been an eyewitness. And if there was an eyewitness that backs up Zimmerman's account, then that becomes much more significant, frankly, than what Zimmerman's friend looks like or what his lawyer has to say about things.
Well, let me ask you that, because this eyewitness, according to the reports, is an anonymous eyewitness here. If the police officer on duty who shows up at this scene is taking this report, or even later on, if this person then came to the police station, how unusual is it that the person would be anonymous in the police report?
I'm mystified as to why you would keep a witness's identification concealed at this point. And I'm also just surprised that this came out a month after the shooting. Right. But one way or another, the reality is going to be that the special prosecutor appointed in this case, forget what I'm saying on TV, or certainly what Zimmerman's lawyer is saying, talk to that eyewitness, whoever he or she may be, because that could be the key to whether George Zimmerman faces serious criminal charges here.
And we're also, again, hearing new reports about what Zimmerman's attorney says that he was told happened. He says that Zimmerman got out of the SUV to follow Trayvon on foot when a dispatch employee asked Zimmerman if he was following the 17-year-old, which we know. He was told that he did not need to do that. Now, what they're also saying is that Zimmerman turned around. He lost sight somehow of Trayvon Martin, was walking back to his SUV. He claims that he was approached from the left rear, and then they exchange words, and this is when he says Trayvon Martin punched him and he had a broken nose. We should also note he did not get medical care until the next day. Now, if these injuries were as serious as a broken nose, which if anybody's had one, then no, that's not a walk in the park. Would you as an attorney inquire as to why, A, we're just hearing this, and B, why didn't he get medical attention? Because this all started, Kendall, with the allegation of just wet T-shirt on the back, some kind of grass on his back.
Yeah, plenty of questions. And the biggest one, there is a gap where we know that Zimmerman was pursuing Trayvon Martin. Then all of a sudden, magically, Zimmerman is the one who's being pursued. I'm very, very skeptical about that. And it's absolutely critical in terms of whether a successful self-defense is going to be presented someday if charges are brought, to know who initiated the confrontation, who really was the aggressor here.
Let me ask you real quick, I've got to get your reaction to, again, this new report that Trayvon Martin had been suspended from school after an empty bag of marijuana, which, again, if it's empty, how do you know it's marijuana? We're going to work to get more details on this, but this empty bag, the school has zero tolerance. This, again, 30 days later is coming to light. His parents confirm he was suspended. What do you make of this? Is this a part of, again, the attorneys for Mr. Zimmerman, or is this just digging into the background of Trayvon Martin? What's happening here?
Well, whoever it's coming from, it's completely irrelevant and a classic example of trying to put the alleged victim on trial. I think it's much more significant to look at some of what we've been reading and hearing about the background of Zimmerman, not the least of which is a 2005 arrest for battery and for resisting arrest of a law enforcement officer.
All right, Kendall Coffey, thank you so much for your time. We'll be talking more with you. Thank you.
Thank you.